So I titled the talk tonight, "What Do You Know?" Because I want to talk about this knowing and not knowing the mind that knows. One of the things that being alive in our present day culture uh, presents us with is the challenge to be one who knows. It's kind of the basis of our claim, I know, and our sense of having some uh, mastery over the world that we know about, we understand. I know what's going on. And if you disagree with me, then we're going to have a problem. So knowing is kind of at the center, at the heart of our collective um, struggles, one of the many things in the center. Um, So in fact, it's an all too often situation that adds to the stresses of COVID, of climate change, injustice, and our or our disidentification with the natural world. These are kind of in the biggest sense, our biggest problems now in the world. And maybe the most is our disidentification with the natural world. We are so much part of the natural world, and we forget. We get lost in the human made. We can look at the violence of the question of who knows the truth. Who knows the truth about the election, or any story that comes into the news that threatens our sense of what is right or what is real, what we know, our sense of identity, who we are as a nation, whatever that means. We hear that phrase all the time, who we are as a nation, as though it's a matter of agreeing on the myth. And the phrase alternative facts is really poetic. It puts its finger on the dharma of perception, actually. Alternative facts. What we think is going on is a matter of what we believe. And what we think is real has consequences, as we're all bearing witness to at the moment. We act according to what we think. And what do you see? What do you make of it? What do you know? So, what do you know is really an important question for all of us to look into as people of the way of clear seeing. In the Pure Land Buddhist teaching tradition, they talk a lot about foolish human beings. We don't use that word foolish too much, but I think it's really apt. We are foolish when we look at all the ideas we carry around that color our perception of what is actual, what is real. And so much of the time, we may not even realize we're doing it. We don't know what we are blind to, and we can't see a lot when we are embedded in it. It's possible to be completely ignorant of my own inner process of meaning making unless I inquire more closely and value the kind of the position of not knowing, making room for not knowing, making room for what else is there beside my opinion about what is. And this is what we are all about in practice. When I practice mindful attention, I mean really paying close attention to this moment. I do notice a lot of things that I might not have noticed before. We in this practice of sitting and attending, we get much more sensitive. It's not that things are there that weren't there before. It's just that There's so much that we don't notice, and there is still so much more that we don't notice. And there is still so much more outside of the realm of our senses. We are equipped to notice within a certain narrow band of conditions in the world. So, but we do become more sensitive. And you may have noticed that. You may have noticed how true that is since you've taken up Zen practice. So what I'd like to point out today is what we make of what we notice. You and I can be so embedded in the meaning that we take from our circumstances that even if we notice the sense details, we nonetheless can get swept up into our own responses to these details, aversion, attraction, and these responses to what we take in can result in unskillful actions. So what I think is going on may not be at all what's going on from another point of view, and I can act on a mistaken understanding of the conditions. We all do this. We all make mistakes. What we make of what we are observing, our personal narrative, can lead to a whole lot of misunderstanding. This is really common in my experience. I assume you know what I'm talking about. You probably have had similar experiences. So I wanted to share an old Zen story, which I particularly find amusing and very true. In the old days, any wandering monk in Japan could remain in a Zen temple, provided that that he, usually a he in the olden days, can debate about Buddhism and win the debate with those who live there. And if he's defeated, he has to move on. But if he prevails, he can stay. So in a temple in the northern part of Japan, there were two brother monks. I see people smiling. Maybe some of you know this story. There were two brother monks dwelling together. It was a small temple. It was a family temple. And the elder one was learned and studied quite a bit. But the younger one was stupid and had just one eye. So a wandering monk comes along and asks for lodging and properly challenging them to debate about the sublime teachings. And the elder brother, tired that day from too much studying, told the younger brother to go ahead and debate. Go and request the dialogue in silence, he cautioned. So the young monk, because the older brother didn't think much of his younger brother, the young monk and the stranger went to the shrine and sat down for this debate. Shortly afterwards, the traveler rose and went to the older brother and said, "Your younger brother is a wonderful fellow. He defeated me." And the older brother was surprised to hear this and says, "Relate the dialogue to me." "Well," explained the traveler, "first I held up one finger, representing the Buddha, the enlightened one. So he held up two fingers, signifying Buddha and his teaching. And I held up three fingers, representing Buddha, his teaching, and his followers, living the harmonious life." Well, then he shook his clenched fist in my face, indicating that all three come from one realization. Thus, he won. And so I have no right to remain here. And with this, the traveler left. And then a little while later, "Where is that fellow?" asked the younger one, running into his older brother. "I understand you won the debate." "Won? Nothing. I'm going to beat him up." "Well, tell me the subject of the debate. says the older brother. Why, the minute he saw me, he held up one finger, insulting me by insinuating that I have only one eye. So he was a stranger. I thought I'd be polite to him. So I held up two fingers, congratulating him that he has two eyes. And then the impolite wretch held up three fingers, suggesting that between us, we have only three eyes. So I got mad and started to punch him, but he ran away. So this story says it all. Have you ever had an experience like that? You really miss it. They were having the same conversation, but it was two entirely different exchanges going on. So I've had experiences like that. I've been present in an argument that was all about, well, you said, and then when I never said whatever it was, I'm being told I said, but I was heard by the other in their way, according to their concerns or the things they were worried about or their own self identification. And likewise, I've been in the reverse position where I thoroughly misunderstood the very same words that someone said, but those words meant something entirely different to them. This goes on. It's such a regular part of our interactions. In the Precious Mirror Samadhi chant that we do sometimes, it says, apparent and real interact. Apparent and real interact. So what the appearance is and what's actually going on are always in relation in some way to each other. And then there's another line that says, the meaning does not reside in the words, but a pivotal moment brings it forth. The meaning does not reside in the words. How much of anything that we say, how much meaning is contained in the words and how much is actually expressed in the body? I heard a, I don't know how this statistic was come up with, we came to it, but that 90% of what we express is expressed by the body, only 5% in what we say. And think of all of the trouble that happens on the internet when people write to each other, exchanges, without the body information there. There's a lot of trouble that comes from those exchanges. So it's really important to consider our own assumptions about others in the world and why it's essential to practice mindfulness and active listening and examine the root of our own meaning, to really come to know our own heart. What appears to be one way can so often be so completely different from appearances. We get lost in delusion. This is what that's referring to when we talk about delusion. We're lost in this veil of our own meanings and assumptions and habitual versions of things. And the story about the two monks is a good example of this. What are the assumptions that I make? I can work with that all the time. What are my assumptions? I always do that when I feel some kind of dis-ease in an interaction. What do I think happened? What assumptions am I making? And what consequences will flow from how I respond? So one of the things that we talk about is mental formations, which is an example of what the term mental formations refers to. The fourth of the four foundations of mindfulness is mental formations. What the mind makes up, the meanings we add, the meaning tone we bring. I impose my mental disposition on some action or exchange that's just happened. Always, I'm always bringing an attitude forward, as opposed to the openness that comes when we're very, very settled and we are aware of our own mental habits. So, what are these dispositions of the mind? Well, compassion, joy is another one, jealousy, any quality of the mind, mood that is brought into, that comes up in our body through our narratives, that come from our experience, that maybe we inherited from our families or culture. Whatever states that I'm in colors my narrative with an energy of reactivity based on my past experiences and beliefs that I formed about them. So when we make up out of ignorance, whatever we make up influences our whole lives and the choices that we make. So in this story, the one-eyed brother was clearly sensitive about having one eye. It was central to his sense of self and how everyone related to him. His sense of himself and his appearance conditioned the meaning that he made from silent gesture of his visitor. And once he was launched into that, his shame or his lifelong awareness of being different from others closed his mind to other possibilities. And that's one thing that we can open to. That's part of what we are liberated into through practice, is being able to see other possibilities, not just our limited habitual possibilities. And that's what comes along with don't know mind. I can be aware of what I think is going to happen, but if I don't know, then I am much more willing to stay open, which in turn can really affect an outcome that's a little different when we're open. It didn't occur to this monk that the other person wasn't relating to him through his very own story. It doesn't occur, if you sometimes that experience, I'm sure you've had it, where somebody responds to something that you say or do in a way that's really puzzling. What did they think? What was going on for them there? We just kind of wander in and get caught in somebody else's web. If he practiced with all of this, if this one-eyed monk practiced don't know mind, that meeting might have gone very, very differently. The traveling monk might have become a valued member of that community and a close Dharma friend. Instead, he left. I mean, this is the way it can go. So what we make out of ignorance, we're attached to and embedded in, can carry through for years and pass down into future generations. We can look at the hostilities all over the world, are ancient hostilities that are enacted still today through the wars and the conflicts that we're all drawn into. So it's really useful to say, what do I know? What do you know? The question underlies Buddha's teachings, and really it is the method that we bring into koan work. Because we're not asking, what do I believe or what I'm thinking about the koan, but what is the direct experience going on? What do I know? What is this? Recognizing our mental formations and realizing the nature of our mind. Now, how do I do that? What do you know about how to do that? What is your experience when you sit on the cushion or the bench or the chair and face this moment of being? Or any time, how do you approach sorting out what's really going on? Before we realize our true nature, the true nature of all of life, Buddha nature, we can use the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which teaches us a reliable process for returning to this moment, for being able to be really open without knowing in this moment. What is the experience in the body? Where in the body it is registering this moment? Is it pleasant or unpleasant or neutral? I mean, that's such a terrific practice. You know, sometimes what we assume is an unpleasant experience, if we really look directly at whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, we might say, well, it's pretty unpleasant. But something like anger, there's very often when we really let loose with our anger, there's something very pleasant about that. Very vital. Finally, what a relief to just let it out. But it's also very unpleasant because it's harmful, it hurts. And then the third is, how relaxed am I? Am I tense or restless, fearful? Am I expansive? Am I dull? So that's the third foundation. So what is the quality, the kind of the energetic quality of this experience? And then finally, what am I thinking? What's my mood? What am I dreading? You know, what's the condition of my heart? Or towards myself and towards others. All of this can be looked at in any experience at all. The 4 foundations of mindfulness are such a reliable tool. And another thing to look at is, how separate do I feel from the other? How separate do I feel from my own self? What is this cage of my own making that I'm caught in? And every once in a while, or maybe more than that, we have a moment, we have an experience of just dropping all of that. It's an accident. Aitken Roshi used to say it's an accident to wake up. But practice makes us accident prone. So sometimes when we're sitting, we have everything finally, the mind shuts up and we have this intimate moment. We drop everything. We call it dropping body and mind, which sounds like a really big deal, maybe a little frightening. I don't want to drop my body and my mind. Not yet. I'm not ready. But actually, it's not far. Where is liberation to be found, if not in the immediate moment, right here? It can never be found anywhere but here. So if that's the case, do you trust this moment enough to be able to let go and settle thoroughly, let go and relax into the moment? This habit of not trusting in this way runs deep. Can we trust this moment enough to let go into it? Born of mental formations and born of all the limiting thoughts and stories of our own and what we inherited from our ancestors, we may not trust this moment enough. It's good to notice where we stand in relation to our willingness to be free and open. And let everything else take care of itself. Being right here and right now. One of my very favorite teachings is from the Tibetan master Longchenpa. And he says, "Stay right here, you lucky people. Let go and be happy in the natural state. Let your complicated life and everyday confusion alone. And out of quietude, doing nothing, watch the nature of mind." This piece of advice is from the bottom of my heart. Fully engage in contemplation, and understanding is born. Cherish non-attachment, and delusion dissolves. And forming no agenda at all, reality dawns. Whatever occurs, whatever it may be, that itself is the key. And without stopping or nourishing it, in an even flow, freely resting, surrendering to ultimate contemplation, in naked, pristine purity, we reach consummation. And when he says contemplation and consummation, contemplation is thoroughly at ease and present. And consummation meaning, what is the consummation? Being right here and right now, open and free, with nothing to do, nothing to fear, nothing to change. This is our natural mind that we are free to enjoy when we don't have to know. So may we all come across this in our practice and discover the release and the relief and the simplicity of this natural mind, if only for briefly and occasionally. Now, thank you for listening.